Secondly, I had faith. Thirdly, I already knew what I needed to begin doing, like how my diet of peanut butter cookies and Mountain Dew was going to have a distinctly negative impact on my magical career. After coming to grips with the existence of the Illuminati, together with their firm belief in the occult, I became a believer in the power of magic. But I was afraid. I was afraid of opening portals to beings in other dimensions right next to my dirty clothes hamper. I was afraid of dealing with alien beings when I could hardly navigate dealings with my own race. And I was afraid of adding even more sin to the copious globs I was already holding on to. I know who I am. I'm weak and pathetic, and to sum it all up, I was afraid of going Darth Vader. Despite all this, I started doing rituals derived from the Order of the Golden Dawn and have been practicing for some time. Until now, I've resisted an urge many authors fail to resist, inundating their books with personal stories. Here, I believe one is in order, but if I play my cards right, you can still keep learning about important topics. How's that sound? At first, my research was completely geared to the Illuminati and Satanism specifically. I started reading books about Satanism and black magic, and noticed something that many Satanists partake in, using the names of multiple religions and mythologies to describe the same character. In the same sentence, Satanists would name 5 different gods from 5 different religions and declare that they were in fact the same entity. This was a conclusion that I came to independently. These black magicians made casual references to the biblical struggle of good and evil, the Greek and Egyptian gods, the Dajjal and Jinn of Islam, the Chi or life force of the Chinese, and the chakras of the Hindus. They appeared to embrace the truth in every religion, as if they took a bit of every religion and formed a new one, calling it the occult. But perhaps what has actually happened is that every religion has remaining shreds of occult truth, simply different shreds. This made the occult the purest remaining copy of the ultimate truth. From Jay-Z to David Rockefeller, the individual members of the Illuminati come from many different backgrounds and from many times and places. But the tie that is interwoven in all they do, the tie that truly binds, is the occult. Indeed, from where I was standing, all roads led to the occult. So my researching eye began to wander away from the exclusive realm of Satanism and black magic, and turned its attentions towards the occult as a whole. In regards to the wider world of the occult, you'll generally run into 2 types of books: the philosophy of the occult and magic. Avoid the former. Books about occult philosophy that make no mention of the laws of magic are often laced with deliberate misinformation, cryptic terms, veiled remarks, and a respectable gallery of symbols. Who are more guilty than the Freemasons? Yet, sadly, this is the chewed meat most reach for when studying the occult. Books about magic, on the other hand, spoke of the same things but in more literal terms. Unlike Freemasonic authors and other occult philosophers, who give grandiose titles to even the most elementary principles of magic, and even more pompous titles to themselves, the magician has dispensed with their misleading symbolism. What's more is that the New Age movement was founded upon the misleading teachings of these occult authors. Since the symbols and veiled comments of these occult philosophers are always based on magic, little true wisdom is to be gleaned from the text of these authors without knowledge of basic magical principles. Similar to how a dog views the English language as a series of meaningful keywords separated by mostly meaningless babble, our researcher will find himself scan reading these texts for keywords that offer a few meaningful reference points he can cling to: Lucifer, the light, Joachim and Boaz, and anything else that rings a bell. This constitutes the bulk of occult researchers. The truth of this statement is easily apparent by observing how many of these researchers will tell you that the Illuminati practice the occult, and how few of them will tell you how it's used. Without magic, there is no occult. Without magic, the occult is nothing more than a collection of symbolic folklore and superstitions, same as every other religion. Without magic, the occultist has no more access to hidden truth than the rest of us, and, like the rest of us, must wait for crumbs of wisdom from above to pass the veil and fall into their lap. The first thing I noticed about the more morally balanced magicians is how they speak to and about negative spirits. While in ritual, the Satanist spoke to these demons as gods, while the white magician spoke to them as slaves. The Satanist spoke from both sides of his mouth in regards to his relationship to these negative entities. On one side of his mouth, he spoke of himself as ascending to godhood by using external, but mainly internal, magic, and these beings were simply facilitating that ambition, each Satanist recognizing himself as the only God. While on the other side of their mouth, they spoke of the demons as gods and demanded that their fellow Satanists accept Satan as their new Lord and guide. One minute it's, "There's no such thing as evil," and the next minute it's, "Satan, darkest of the dark lords of evil, come forth within me." They spoke of loyalty and compassion as weaknesses harbored by the human herd, the prey. They promote the unlimited use of man's naturally predatory instinct. They believe in the casting off of moral labels and replacing them with pragmatism. They spoke of using magic to transform their spirits and become gods. The white magician, on the other hand, spoke to these same beings as a parent speaks to a child, as though his command was a God-given right. This is more than my own figure of speech. Often these priests would call upon the many names of God to bring spirits into the ritual, and also use them to control and punish the disobedient ones. After the names of God, these magi would call upon the powers of archangels to force the obedience of almost any spirit. The magician would assign an inanimate object to the spirit, and like a voodoo doll, subject that object to injury, thereby subjecting the spirit to the same injuries. And finally, he would use iron objects, like swords and knives, to stab disruptive spirits. Satanists, on the other hand, may hesitate to bring iron anywhere near the spirit during a ritual, as it may offend the gods. Another thing that impressed me about magicians, both good and bad, was their overall knowledge they possessed regarding the Bible, Islam, apocryphal texts, Judaism, Hinduism, and almost all of the mythologies. They could quote the Bible with the best of them. This overall spiritual knowledge is most likely due to their understanding regarding the singular root story, rather than intense memorization on their part. The fact that they have so liberally used the names and storylines from multiple beliefs so interchangeably is proof of this. What else I found interesting was how some magicians referred to Osiris and Yahweh as Lord, except when they spoke of him or identified him in any way, it was always in terms of Jesus Christ. Further, these very same magicians recommended a lifestyle and use of magical powers that anyone could call Christian. Some magicians, like our aforementioned Amberlin, recommended a lifestyle only the angels could touch. His emphasis regarding the moral use of magic and devotion to God became redundant, even to the well-intentioned reader. But there was something else about these occult writers that drew me in. I found myself intrigued by their commentary about psychology, history, and the true nature of man in the universe. This commentary, streaming in from both good and bad magicians, was insightful enough to offer proof of their sanity, and crazy enough to be nearly beyond belief. They painted a picture of the universe my rational mind was almost not ready for. But I guess it wasn't just their sanity that was in question, because they were doing no more than answering questions I've had all my life. Like, why do I, and everyone else, do things so far outside the realm of self-preservation? Countless times have I looked back at acts of my life, both righteous and wicked, and said, what the hell was I thinking? It's obvious that both acts of charity, say giving canned foods, and acts of debasement, say buying a pack of cigarettes, will amount to some form of loss to the one who has chosen either extreme. I also had questions about the strange sensation I get every once in a while that I'm experiencing something that already happened, usually called déjà vu. Even in a completely new and unforeseen environment, sometimes I could swear I've already been here, doing this, having this exact conversation. And what's up with the weird images that flood my mind in the last few moments before I actually fall asleep? Strange animations of objects in motion, people I don't know, landscapes I've never witnessed. While in a visibly empty room, why do I sometimes feel like I'm not alone? I had questions, and only because I was ready to know, they had answers. Truly, all roads were leading to the occult. The word occult simply means hidden. This is not only a reference to hidden knowledge, but also the hidden properties that all things possess. In the occult, all objects and spaces not only have chemical and physical properties, but hidden occult properties as well. Take holy water, for instance. When making holy water, the magician or Catholic priest performs a ritual that includes prayers that cleanse the water. After this, the water's hidden properties are clean, despite the fact that a chemist would claim that the water is unchanged. Those hidden properties of the water are not only clean, but the water can now be used to clean the occult properties of other objects, and even people. This is the premise behind holy water. Although magicians and priests have similar intentions for making holy water, the methods are surely different. A magician will imagine himself reaching into the water and drawing out negative virtues. He will intensely visualize cleansing energy flowing into the water while saying a short prayer. The Catholic priest, on the other hand, is more likely to simply close his eyes, rapidly spout a hollow, well-memorized prayer over the water, and be on his way. I've heard many knowledgeable magicians recommend performing similar prayers and visualizations for food and water immediately before consumption. In essence, eating not but holy food and drinking